Hi, this is Charlie Calvert, and this is the third in a multi-part series of videos on using the Visual Studio IDE. And in this one, what we're going to do is look at the Properties window and the Class window. They're two windows that can play a big role in development, particularly when you're editing files. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the way they work. Now, as you recall, we press Control W, and then we can take our hands off the keyboard. You don't have to keep those held down. And then press P to bring up the Properties window. And now we've got the Properties window visible there. And we might bring up the designer also. So now we've got the Properties window over here, and let's drag it out of that place and put it over here so we can see it a little more easily. It's just for right now we're going to talk about it, so let's bring it up here where we can really focus on it. And the first thing to notice about the Properties window is that it has two major different categories in it. One is the Properties view and the other is the Events view. And you can switch back and forth between the two of them. The one being the properties with which you change the features of the control that you happen to be working with at this time. Right now we're working with Form 1. Or you could switch over here to the events view where you can create events that might be associated with this particular control, such as an on-click event with a button. Right? So if we switched over to one of our buttons, we can see the on-click event is right here, and if we double-clicked here, we'd be taken to the event handler for it. This is also a place where you can create event handlers if you want to. Now, each of these, whether you're in Events View or whether you're in Properties View, you have a choice of viewing all of the available properties or events either sorted in alphabetical order or sorted by group. If you sort them by group, then all the ones, say, about appearance are here. You know, such a thing as the back color, the font, the forecolor. Things that have to do with its appearance are here. Things that have to do with its behavior, does it allow a drop, does it have a tab index, tab stop, and so on, are in a different category. And the same is true with events. You can either have this category of view where you tend to have things broken out into things like appearance and behavior and key and so on. Or you can just have one big long alphabetical list, and I'm not going to pretend to know which one's best. It's up to you to choose which one you want. Okay, so you can tab around inside the Properties window. So if I press Tab here, now I've moved over from the list on the left, which shows me all our properties, over to the place where I could actually start editing or playing with this particular button click method here. If I press Tab again, then I'm taken up to the very top where you can choose which control on your currently selected form you want to work with. If you hold down the Alt key and press down arrow, this list of all the different options will pop up. Then you can just, let go of the Alt key and move your arrows up and down to choose any one of the controls that you might want to play with at any particular time. And you'll notice that as I move around in them, if you look sort of in the background, over here on the if you look in the background while I'm here in this list, you can see that as I select different controls, different items get selected on the form over here, right? So you can see which ones, and vice versa. If I click on one of the buttons down here, then that button gets selected in here. If I select the text box, then the text box gets selected up here. But let's put the focus back here on the Properties window, and then I tab around again inside of here. Once I tab past the combo box at the top of this Properties window, I end up on this bar here where I can select this toolbar where I can use the arrow keys to select any one of these guys and then press enter in order to move into it. Now, when I'm on this left-hand column in the Properties window, I can use the arrow keys to move up and down. Okay, so you can slide up and down and choose the one you want, which can be useful at certain times. And remember, if you're not in the place where you want to be, just start tabbing around till you get, back to some location that you might want to be in, and then you can move around back and forth. It's not really actually that elegant, but it is useful to at least understand what it is, to understand that there are events, that there are properties, that you can have them alphabetical, you can have them by group, and you can select any particular control with that dialog up at the top, with the combo box up here on the top. If you understand that much, you've gone a long way here towards starting to understand the properties window. Now I'm going to come down here and see this little control here they've got allows you to select where this guy's going to dock. So I'm going to dock him back down here in the bottom, which is where he typically is. Now let's take a look at another tool. If you go up to the View menu, you can see that you've got something called a class view, right? Control W plus C, Control plus W comma C. So I'll go ahead and choose it that way. Control W, and that brings down at the bottom left hand corner you can see the Control plus W is pressed, waiting for the second chord. You can take your hands all the way off the keyboard. Once you've pressed the Control W thing, you don't have to do anything but wait until you are ready to make your next move, which in this case will be to press C, and that brings up the class view. Now I'm actually going to close the properties window at this time. I'd rather not have it open while I'm showing you what goes on in class view. Now class view right here, what we're looking at is the namespace, Windows Forms Application 11, right? Which if you think about it, that's what appears at the top of your applications. This is the Windows Forms Application 11 namespace, and inside of it we've got a form here, okay? And if we look down here, we can see Form 1, which is part of our namespace, also the main program where our entrance is, our main method is available to us here. If you click on either of these items inside the class view, or if you scroll up and down between them with the arrow keys, down in the window below you can see the various components of these classes. For instance, here we can see our button action click handler, and if you click on it you'll be taken directly to it. If you click on the constructor, you're taken directly to the constructor. So we can see a little bit about what's available for us. These guys down here, those are the ones with a little pinkness associated next to them. And then if you look down here, these are the components that we dropped onto the form, the button action, button computer. If you double click on one of them, you'll be taken to these various components. Here's button action, here's button action, button compute, text box, first name. Remember we renamed these earlier in one of our videos. So this gives you a chance to see what's going on over here. Now if you create a new class in your program, you can watch what happens up here. So I'm going to create a new class. I pressed Alt-Shift-C, and that brought up this Add New Item dialog. Another way to do the same thing is to right click here and choose Add and then Class. It's a little bit off the screen, I'm sorry, but I'm choosing Add and then Class, and that pops up this same dialog. So I'm going to add a class called My Class, and I'll click Enter. Now look over here in the class view. Do you see that the class has been added just when the code came in? Now if we click on My Class, it doesn't have any members yet, but if I come down here, make it public since I've been asking you to do that. If we come down here and we go public void do this, and we make it a valid method, then if you look, the do this method showed up over here as a member of My Class. And if I come down here and watch that window as I type in another name, if I go public void do that and add it in, now you can see do that is included down there. These are public methods. If I made a private one where I go private void do something and I add it in, now look at the icon that's associated with do something. Do you see the little padlock there next to it? That's telling us that it's a private method. Okay, so we have three methods inside of our class here. Do this, do that, do something, and we can, see them all, navigate between them by clicking around in here. Or we can move up to Form 1 and go to our button one click. So it can serve as a very nice way to navigate through your code by understanding this class view. If we went over here and created an instance of my class, okay, now if I access our instance of my class, look what I can see. I can see do that, I can see do this, I can see the four methods that we inherited from the base class from object, but I don't see do something. Why? Because it's private, right? So the do something method is private, and if I actually tried to call it just out of sheer cussedness, if I said I'm determined to call this thing and then I press F6, then we get an error, right? And it says my class do something is inaccessible due to its protection level because it's private, all right? So we can't get at it. Now if I want to go to that error, you might recall I press F8, it takes me to the error. And now one thing which we'll talk about maybe in our next video is navigation. And here I can press F12, or if I don't want to do the hotkey, I can choose go to definition, boom, and it takes me to the definition. And I could, in theory, change do something private to public, in which case our error would go away. I guess maybe it would be, we look at that. And now, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner after I pressed F6, you can see our build succeeded. But we made this thing private for a reason, let's suppose, and so we didn't actually want to make that change, and the appropriate thing to do would be to come back over here. How did I change between those two files so quickly? I press Control and Tab. It brings up this extremely fancy dialog, and then I can go back, choose my class or some other file in my project, and I can navigate between them. That's I hold down Control, I press Tab, and it lets me navigate between that file or if I'd like some other file in my project. Okay. Then one last thing I think might be worth showing you. Let's go ahead and bring up the just sort of end on a humorous note here. Let's go ahead and bring up the properties window again. And here was something I did the other day. I brought up the properties window, I dragged it, and I said, why don't I just dock it right here in the middle of things here. So now I've docked the properties window in here right in the middle of my project. And suddenly I go, I don't really want the properties window in the editor. I want it over here. And I try to drag it back. And life is just, I'm not getting much support here from the IDE and this project of trying to drag it back out of here. It just doesn't really want to do it. And so I'm unhappy and I don't know how to fix it. Okay? And this can happen to you when you're inside the IDE. Life will just conspire against you. And what I do in these situations is I go to Window and I choose Reset Window Layout. All right? So I went Window and then Reset Window Layout. And are you sure you want to restore to the default window layout for the environment? And I go yes. And then it just takes me back here to this position. And all my troubles just went away. And now if I press Control WP, it shows back up where I want it to. Okay? What I'm just trying to show you is that things can go wrong sometimes, and if you're really unhappy and somehow you've gotten into a state that you just go, I don't know what I've done to the IDE, it's all convoluted, I can't figure it out, go here to Window, Reset Window Layout, and your life will just sort of revert back to where it was when you began, and you can hopefully sort things out from there. So that's all I wanted to say here. We took a little bit of a look at the properties window, a little bit of a look at the class view, class window. We saw how you can track various members of a class through the class view, and we showed you what you got in the properties, the events, the properties window with the events and the properties alphabetical sorting by category, and the little combo box at the top that lets you select the control on your currently selected form that you want to work with. So thanks, that's enough for now, and we'll see you in another video later on.